Need a break from true crime? Then roll for initiative and check out I Crit You Not, a brand new actual play RPG podcast from the team behind Sirens.
Join host and game master Rick Rollins as he leads a cast of players through wild adventures, ridiculous monsters, and totally unscripted chaos. Whether you're a longtime tabletop fan or brand new to the world of role-playing, Rick makes it easy to follow along and even teaches the rules as you go. Expect big laughs, bigger mistakes, and character-driven storytelling where every dice roll can change everything.
If you're ready to trade cold cases for critical hits, listen to I Crit You Not wherever you get your podcasts. Even the darkest minds need a little magic.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the podcast. I can neither confirm nor deny that author David McCloskey is with us today. David McCloskey is a former CIA analyst and consultant at McKinsey & Company. While at the CIA, he wrote regularly for the President's Daily Brief. He delivered classified testimony to congressional oversight committees, and he briefed senior White House officials, ambassadors and military officials, and Arab royalty. I know you might be asking, and maybe you know, but what is the President's Daily Brief? So it is a top secret document produced and given each morning to the President of the United States. It provides a summary of high-level, all-source information and analysis on national security issues. It is distributed to a small number of top-level U.S. officials who are approved by the President. It includes highly classified intelligence analysis, information about covert operations, and reports from the most sensitive U.S. sources, or those shared by allied intelligence agencies. It is designed to keep the president informed about critical national security matters and to provide insights that can aid in decision-making. He did work in the CIA field stations across the Middle East during that time. During his time at McKinsey, he advised national security, aerospace, and transportation clients on a range of strategic and operational issues. He holds an MA from the Johns Hopkins School for Advanced International Studies, where he specialized in energy policy and the Middle East. He is currently a Texan, where he lives with his wife and 3 kids. Believe it or not, he is also an author. He currently has 3 works, and we are going to discuss his newest book, which dropped, I believe, October 1st. It is called The Seventh Floor. So without further ado, here is my conversation with David McCloskey.
From chilling novels and psychological thrillers to horror short stories, film and screenplays, to true crime, podcasts, music, and the art of storytelling itself, Dreadfully Yours invites listeners into conversations with the minds behind the stories that stay with us. Hosted by author, audiobook narrator, and podcaster Raven Rollins, each chapter blends cinematic narration with intimate discussions exploring creativity, suspense, and the human experiences woven into dark storytelling. Welcome to the show, where stories linger long after the last page. This is Dreadfully Yours.
Today, I have David McCloskey.
You got it. It's a good start.
We're going to talk just about all kinds of stuff, if that's cool. I think people really want to know about your background. Can we talk about that? I mean, I literally have an intro that says, I can neither confirm or deny that David McCloskey is with us today, so...
No, we can talk about it. I'm not a criminal. I'm a former CIA analyst. I worked at Langley and throughout the Middle East for a number of years, from about 2006 to 2014. I left without any intention of writing anything, and found just kind of in the writing, as I was processing a bunch of the stuff I'd worked on and seen and lived through, that writing was a really helpful way to sort of come to terms with, you know, what I had experienced and to help me understand what I thought about the world. And so I kind of started to write. Like most people who start writing, it's, you know, pretty bad when you start, and it's not actually a book. But I've been out of the agency now for many years, and it kind of put the stuff away and came back to it and eventually decided, all right, I'm going to try to make this into something that's a book that other people want to read. And now I write spy fiction. So a little different from true crime, but the most recent book, which is called The Seventh Floor, is kind of a whodunit in some respects, because it's about there's a Russian mole operating inside Langley, and we want to know, of all of our juicy suspects, who is it?
Oh, yeah, because it seems like it is one of those almost like Knives Out sort of, because it kind of all takes place. Does it not all take place in like one, obviously the seventh floor of one building?
A lot of it takes place there. It's not like I guess it's not like Clue, where you're just in the same mansion or whatever, but a huge amount of it takes place in Langley, right? It's kind of it really is a CIA story at the end of the day, about the building, about the people, about the organization, good, bad, and ugly. And unlike my first two books were very classic sort of international thriller, where you've got like 4 or 5 threads, they're all sort of careening toward each other, they smash at the end, chaos ensues. This one is much more like maybe a cozy crime in some ways, although there's pieces of the story that are not so cozy. We've got a list of suspects, and we're trying to figure out who it is, with our main protagonist, who's the investigator.
That is always something that has perplexed me. We call a lot of these books genre is like cozy murder mystery.
Yeah, people are getting like cut up with axes. It's not so cozy, right?
It's not that cozy. No, I don't think it's that cozy.
No.
So I think what people really want to know is, what even is a CIA analyst? What does it even do?
The best way I could explain it would be that it's like clandestine journalism, right? You think about what a journalist is doing, particularly like an investigative journalist, right? They have a question they're trying to answer with their piece. They go out and recruit sources who have information that helps them put that story together. They write something up, they recruit those sources, right? And a lot of those sources might have very strange motives for, participating. It might be an ego trip. It might be that they hate their boss, or they hate the company they work for, whatever, all kinds of different things. So the journalist sort of has to sort all that out. They then have to write this thing up and communicate it in a way that is clear, crisp, well-sourced, entertaining, right? In some respects, like got to hold the reader's attention. And it's got to be, they're going through an empirical process to sort of get at the truth, right? And that is basically what the CIA does. We go out and we have a question we want to answer. Let's say I worked on Syria for most of my time at the agency. Syria went through a massive civil war starting about 15 years ago. The big question when that started was, okay, well, what are the different scenarios for how this could play out? And we went out and we tried to find sources who have a perspective on that, or a perspective on different pieces of it. Usually those sources it's not like they should be giving us this information. They're secrets. We're basically stealing information, right? And then, you get that information, you recruit those people, you handle those people, and then you're writing it up in a way that the president can react to, can understand. And so it's really a lot like what a journalist does. The CIA is not a newsroom, it's not a media organization, but the kind of workflow of the analyst, of the case officer, of the agency as a whole has a lot of parallels to journalism.
So a CIA analyst is not the same as a CIA agent, like Reacher or whatever.
Yes. And the terminology actually is important. And I try to get it as authentic in my book. So the agent is the usually foreign national who has the secrets that we want, who is recruited by the CIA to work for us. That's what we would call the agent or the asset. The person doing that, who actually works for the CIA, is usually called a case officer or an intelligence officer, not an agent. So whenever you see anywhere be like, oh, Jack Ryan is a CIA agent, it's totally bonkers. He's a CIA officer. The agent would be the person he goes out to recruit in Russia or Venezuela or, Turkey or whatever.
Ah, okay. So then once you gather all this, you make your write-up, who do you present this to?
Well, for a lot of products, it would be the president. I mean, the flagship product is called the President's Daily Brief.
Okay.
The PDB. It's basically a classified newspaper. That's essentially
just
what
for
it is.
him.
For him or her and the group of people that they designate as recipients. And typically that's like, the Secretary of Defense gets it, the Secretary of State gets it,
obviously.
Of course, the CIA director, those kind of people are getting it. But it's a pretty small group. And the president gets to decide who receives it. And it's obviously an extremely highly classified product to get your hands on.
And this is basically meant for him to be able to make better informed decisions, I guess?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. I mean, the simplest answer to like why the CIA matters and why it does what it does is it tries to give us an information advantage over our adversaries or competitors. So any given situation around the globe, we want our president, our policy community to have the best possible information about what's going on, why it's happening, and what it means, sort of the so what. And that advantage is what we're trying to deliver to the people making the big national security decisions in the White House.
I think I actually recently spoke to someone who thought that the FBI and the CIA are the same. They do the same thing. And that could not be further from the truth, right?
That's correct. Very false. Yeah. It is generally true, although there are some exceptions to this, that the FBI is a domestic security agency.
Right.
Domestic law enforcement, right? The CIA is a foreign intelligence service. So the FBI wants to arrest bank robbers in the United States. The CIA wants to recruit bank robbers in Moscow so that they can do stuff for us in Russia, right?
That is very different.
It's very different. The FBI is focused on upholding American law. The CIA breaks laws overseas.
Constantly. Which is why it is so like hush hush. And they don't you have people like Steven Seagal that can just say they were in the CIA.
Steven Seagal.
And no one can even they can't confirm or deny it because it's such a secretive, agency. I find that interesting.
It is very secretive. It's much more secretive than the FBI in general, although there are pieces of the FBI that are also quite secretive and do overlap with elements of what the agency does, what the CIA does. But, the best way to think about the two agencies, the FBI and the CIA, culturally is that really the FBI are cops and the CIA are robbers. And that's why they don't, there is a bit of we collaborate with the FBI on a ton of stuff, but there is very much a cultural difference between the two places.
How do you even become a CIA analyst? What path do you even take to get there?
So there's a lot of different paths. Because it is a big place, but primarily, analysts get hired, sounds kind of boring, but analysts get hired out of undergrad or grad programs or PhD, out of school. I got hired out of undergrad. I was really young. They have an undergraduate intern program, which sounds ridiculous, but actually is true. They're trying to find young people, like any organization is, to bring in and fill the ranks. They also hire, so I was 19 when I took my first polygraph.
Wow.
I joined when I was 20. Yeah. Because it's just, as an intern. So I went through the whole kind of clearance process and showed up for the summer. And there's like a normal internship. And then we also hire people, who have spent their whole lives writing, their PhD dissertation on Vladimir Putin, right? And who are, much more advanced in years and experience on that particular topic. So analysts kind of come from all over, but in general, those two profiles are kind of what the agency is looking for, is on the one hand, young people who might not know a lot about anything, but who can be trained and coached and brought up to be good analysts. And then we also want to bring in, on the other side of the spectrum, people who have really deep technical expertise on, a country, a language, a weapons system, those kind of things, to bring them in and then make them analysts, right?
Do you guys have hackers? You can tell me.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, the agency has offensive cyber capabilities for sure.
That's awesome. I want to kind of touch on something that you just said with the polygraph. Is that a standard thing?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Everyone, if you're getting a TS-SCI clearance, which is a top secret, especially, I think it's sensitive compartmented information is what that SCI stands for. Although now I'm blanking on it. If you want that clearance, you have to go through what's called a lifestyle poly, which is a very intrusive experience where they ask you questions about everything, and that's standard. Now, a lot of other intelligence agencies in the Western world don't use polygraphs like we do. We've got a thing for the polygraph. It's been the case forever that we use it. And so it is not the determinant of whether you get an offer, but it plays a role in kind of they look at it holistically with like a background investigation, obviously an interview, there's a psych exam, medical exam, all that kind of stuff. But the polygraph's a piece of it.
That is so crazy because like at a local level, especially here in Oklahoma, it's just kind of standard to say that the polygraph is junk science. Do you believe it's junk science?
I do. I think what it's not junky at, though, is intimidating people and creating a situation in which someone's really stressed and where you can sort of poke and prod to see what comes out. And I think
see what you're saying here.
Yeah, I think it's not. It's more about destabilizing the candidate and creating a feeling of sort of threat and intimidation to see what happens. I think that's really why it's used.
So was that your plan? Because you said you were recruited. So is that like what you had in mind, or was that kind of a surprise and you were like, oh yeah, let's go down and see what happens here?
Like I said, I joined when I was 19 or 20. My resume at the time was literally like, I actually think the job I had before the CIA was I was a cashier at Wendy's. And, like in high school, that was my job. So when the CIA shows up, I thought, well, that's pretty damn cool. CIA, that sounds interesting. So there is the kind of wow factor. And then as I went through the process, the polygraph's deeply unpleasant. The background investigation's kind of weird. But at the time I'm thinking, and this was true, it's like, well, where else am I? The CIA is a pretty unique experience. And if I can have an opportunity to get in, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna kind of see where this ride goes. And I'm glad that I did.
It kind of seems like maybe a once in a lifetime kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are there any myths about the CIA that you tend to maybe hear a lot that you can debunk?
I think the question about the FBI and the CIA being kind of the same thing. I think at the root of that is this idea that the CIA is really like operating inside America, sort of listening to Americans' phone calls, spying on Americans.
The conspiracy theorists.
Yeah. So that doesn't really happen.
Are you listening to my cell phone?
Yeah, exactly. So the CIA isn't spying on Americans, right?
We're spying on other people.
We're spying on other people.
Countries.
Yeah. So that's one I would debunk. There's all this stuff from sort of Hollywood, right, where you've got where you kind of have this vibe of like superhero spies. Everyone's well armed.
Mission Impossible.
Exceedingly attractive. There's car chases and everyone's well dressed. And I think we kind of all probably know that that's not how it is, but it's so common in the popular representation that it's impossible for it to sort of not bleed into the public consciousness about what the CIA is. But that's not at all what the agency does, right? Really. It's about collecting intelligence, analyzing intelligence. It's a very, very different from Tom Cruise, jumping off a mountain with on a motorcycle.
Tom Cruise is doing all of his own stunts for no reason.
For no reason, yeah. I think he's maybe having more fun than most CIA officers are, but we're not doing that on the regular. So those would be a couple of the myths that I would dispel. I think go back to the clandestine journalism thing. That's what the job is, right? And it's hard to make that. You have to be really thoughtful and creative about how you make that work in movies, TV, like books, because can oftentimes not be as, action packed or as crazy as like stuff blowing up all the time and Jack Ryan and Tom Cruise saving the day.
Don't take this the wrong way, but you seem very young to not be in the CIA anymore. So is that like normal to get out of the CIA like when you did?
Look, I think it's increasingly normal. It's a bit of a generational thing too. I think it's just more and more of us, damn millennials and Gen Z types who have decided that we're not going to stay places for our whole career. So there's definitely changes happening across the entire workforce, and CIA is not exempt from those. For a long time, it was very uncommon for people to leave. It was a lifer kind of place. I mean, the training program that I was in when I joined was called the Career Analyst Program, which of course then, carries the connotation that this is your career, is being an analyst here. And I think for many people for a very long time at CIA, that was kind of the mentality. It was like, you're a lifer.
Lifer, right. It's
increasingly, uncommon for that to be the case. And I kind of got to a point when I was in my early 30s where I said, I don't think I want to do this forever. What else is out there? And so my story about jumping is very mundane. I mean, it was just wanted to get out of DC, want to find something else, and so we took the plunge.
So I come from a first responder family, mostly paramedics, but we see a severe lack of mental health resources. And so I just kind of wonder, because even here, I've made some friends with state police, and even up the ladder, it seems to be very lacking. And I know that the more up the ladder you go, the more horrible you see, right? Mm-hmm. So I kind of wonder if there is a lack of that in the CIA, and maybe is that how you determine kind of, do you get burnout and kind of go, I've seen too much, this is too much, and it's time for something new?
I think people do get burned out for sure. I mean, I wouldn't say that that's why I left. It was horrible to watch what was going on in Syria. And in many respects, it was sort of traumatic, but that wasn't why. It wasn't like, oh man, I've just got to get away from this entirely because of that, for me at least. I think in particular, when we're talking about case officers, people who are living overseas for long periods, sometimes with their families, sometimes not, who are the ones actually out there like recruiting, assessing, developing, recruiting, and handling these foreign, assets or agents. That job it's a pretty weird job, obviously. It is very stressful on kind of normal, quote unquote, family life. You do see, especially people who did a lot of time in war zones in Iraq and Afghanistan and things like that, like see some things that are, hard to unsee. And so I think there is a lot of stress on the mental health of those types of people, and the resources inside the agency to deal with it. I don't know. I couldn't speak to how well developed they are, but I mean, having seen some other sort of support pieces of the CIA, I'd have to think that they're probably a little bit underdeveloped, and that in some cases there probably is a stigma from sort of taking advantage of them, right?
Yeah, I think that that's the biggest thing that I see, is that even if they are in place, they are not taken advantage of because of the stigma of it. Yeah. So I know, okay, so I have a rule here, because I come from a first responder family. I never ask someone, what's the worst thing you've ever seen? I think that's the worst question you can ever ask somebody. Please relive your trauma for me, just as my entertainment. But I will ask you, because I'm sure you've seen some stuff, how do you personally deal with seeing some of the things that you've probably seen?
Honestly, it's writing, for me. It started as a desire to kind of put some humanity into the experience that I had covering and watching and living in Syria when it fell apart. Instead of just writing stuff for, high level kind of analytic stuff for the president, like I wanted to write stories about people. And that was a way for me to sort of, I think, make some sense of it. I think now, when I write, it really is a desire to kind of understand the world and understand people and understand at times, why do I feel this way? Why do I think what I think? I think writing is a way for me to sort of get to the root of that stuff, I have former colleagues at the agency who have gone through traumatic events at CIA and who do things now like paint, as a way to kind of deal with the stress and trauma that came out of having experienced or seen those types of things. So I think there's something to be said for like human beings needing a kind of creative outlet that's not writing emails, making PowerPoint pages, sitting in front of an Excel file, but like doing things that sort of tap into something deeper in us about, building stuff, creating stuff, telling stories. I think it can be very healing.
Yeah, I think most of us, the kind of thread that I've seen between even true crime podcasters like me, I've written a true crime book, so true crime writers and crime fiction and thriller writers and even horror authors, I think we're all, at the core of us, want to tell human interest stories, is really what it is. So I always like to ask that question, and I think that it's always fascinating that that's always the answer. Yeah. And I love that because that kind of pulls us all together as, as humans.
Yeah, absolutely.
So did you always kind of dabble in writing fiction, like alongside your work, or how did that start?
It really just started after I left the CIA. I didn't ever think about doing this when I was inside the agency. I mean, growing up, I read extensively. My dad was a college professor. We were always, in bookstores and libraries. He was reading all that. So there was I think a love of story, a love of books, a love of the written word. He's a writer himself. So like I kind of grew up with that in the home, but I had honestly just never thought that I would do it. And honestly, if I did, I would have told you like, oh, I'd probably write a nonfiction book. I'd write a story, sort of a history of like what the CIA had been up to in the Middle East or something like that, like something in that vein, right? And it was only after I left the CIA and just started to kind of dabble with the writing, which again was more like a journal, where I was like, oh, as I'm doing this 6, 7, 8 hours a day are going by like that, I'm in flow. And so a lot of the writing is just a desire to sort of keep doing that. And it's less about, I'm trying to get a bunch of books published, although that's of course fun. It's like, how do I get to a stage where I can sit down for 6 hours and get into this world and build it and write it and meet these characters? That's why I keep doing it.
I think it's really interesting because you just said something I was actually going to ask you. Why did you go with fiction instead of nonfiction? And so I'm kind of wondering if it is more about the catharsis of it for you.
Yeah. I think that's well said. I think it is very cathartic. And it is also having sort of dug a world up and told its story in a form of a novel is after you're done, a very empowering feeling. That it's not like I kind of have a weird perspective on where the stories and characters come from. It doesn't feel like it comes from me, like saying I created them. I guess we can say that as a shorthand, but as I'm doing it, it actually doesn't feel that way. It feels like they sort of have already, they've always existed, and this world exists. I'm just sort of finding it and kind of telling its stories. But I think, and I have friends who've written nonfiction books, and some of them have done very well and are very excellent. It's not the same feeling of having kind of found that world, I think the feeling of fiction is like, well, this was a blank page before I got to it, and now it's a story and it's a whole world, and that's a very exciting feeling to be riding that wave and to be able to look over at the shelf and be like, oh, there's 3 books up there that kind of came out of this process. It's really cool.
Did you you have 3 books? They're a series, right?
Not really, is the honest answer. They are part of the same universe.
Okay.
So there's characters that overlap and things like that, but it's not a Jack Ryan 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. You could jump in and start this anywhere.
Okay, great. Do you have any like recurring characters in them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there is one character who is in all 3.
Oh, wow.
Her name is Artemis Proctor, and she is in Damascus Station. The first one, she's the chief of station. She's the head CIA person in Damascus. The second one in Moscow X, she's the head of this unit called Moscow X. And in the 7th floor, she is she's the kind of head investigator, trying to find this mole. And so she is a recurring character. There are other very minor characters who recur in a couple of them, but she's kind of the connective tissue because she's one of those characters that's just, so much fun to write and work with that every time I sit down to write, it's kind of been an obvious choice to bring her into the story.
So would you say she's one of your favorite characters?
She is my favorite. She is my favorite character to write. She's a very short, curly-haired, highly colorful, profane, somewhat insane CIA case officer who is also extraordinarily loyal to her friends, and in this book has a bit of a drinking problem too, which she's getting over in the 4th one. But she's a very flawed person in many ways, but in others she's just wonderful. And I think as a writer, you're looking for characters where you kind of think the scene, you architect a scene, and you're like, well, I think this is kind of where we'll go, And she's one of those characters where you start the scene with her in it. You don't have any idea where it's actually going to end up. And that's good, I think. If I'm surprised as the writer, the reader will probably be surprised too.
This new one that you have out, it's called The 7th Floor, just came out a couple days ago. Can you give us just like a brief overview of your plot and maybe some of your main themes in The 7th Floor?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, it's a story around this woman, Artemis Proctor, who is, when the book opens, she's running an operation where there's a Russian who's showed up in Singapore who's got a secret to sell the CIA. She sends one of her close friends, a guy by the name of Sam Joseph, to Singapore to hear out this Russian. And of course, the whole thing goes sideways. Sam ends up getting kidnapped and held by the Russians. And he gets traded back like a few months later in a spy swap. And when he comes back, he shows up on Proctor's doorstep. And of course, she's since been fired from CIA. So she's been let go for screwing up the operation. Uh-oh. She's running or helping to run the family business in Florida, which is an alligator themed amusement park. And he shows up. I know she like I said, she's a bit deranged and wouldn't have quote unquote normal jobs after she leaves CIA. So he shows up at her doorstep and says, basically has this revelation that there's a Russian double agent, a mole, operating at the upper reaches of Langley on the 7th floor. And the two of them set out on this sort of unofficial investigation to try to figure out who it is. And they get to this short list that is made up of Proctor's, some of her closest friends, and also some really nasty enemies that she's made in her almost 25-year career inside the CIA. And so it becomes a bit of this whodunit, to figure out who the mole is. And so, it's I think from a thematic standpoint, it's a spy novel. And so we've got present day CIA versus the Russians who are operating or running this mole. We've got all the present day tradecraft and, all that good stuff that you want in a spy novel. But what this story really became for me is a story about friends and friendship. What does friendship look like in a really faithless business? And frankly, kind of what can we know about the people that are closest to us?
Especially that work in the CIA.
Right. And one of whom, who is potentially a dear friend of hers who has been working for the Russians and betraying their friends for, years. So to me, it kind of became, the thing that became really interesting about the book from a character standpoint was just following this group of friends over time and understanding their world, their dynamic, and how it's possible that one of them could have betrayed the rest of them.
So this seems like a big web going on here. How do you sit down and approach developing such complex characters and interactions and relationships?
It is not linear at all, I will say. It's very frustrating. I don't outline anything ever. I used to try to. I just found it made the books feel flat and uninteresting to me. Lots of people outline and they don't write flat and uninteresting books, but I couldn't figure out how. So I really spend a lot of time thinking about, okay, could I write a scene that's got energy? And I'll sit down and I'll try to write a scene that's got energy. And I might not even know where it goes in the book. I might not even know if it's going to be in the book, but I really try to get something that just in and out you are drawn into as the reader. And I just get to know my characters, I think, by spending a lot of time with them and writing a lot of words that I know and a lot of scenes that I kind of know even while I'm writing might not go in the book, but that are critical to understanding who these people are, how they communicate, what they like, what they hate, what they're hiding, all that kind of stuff that I'll just write. And the books, are somewhere between 10 and 130,000 words. And over the course of writing, I probably write like 300,000, something like that, 350,000. And it's just a lot of stuff that ends up on the cutting room floor, but it's like the way to figure out, in this case, okay, we got this group of 6 friends, how do they all interact and how have they grown up together? To me, it's like I couldn't outline that. I just had to start writing them to find it.
Is that how you normally, or how you have approached your past ones, just kind of pants it?
Yeah, I'm a pantser. Absolutely. I mean, I tried to plot it and it just didn't, but the first one, it just didn't work. And I thought about doing it with the second one. I started it and I'm going to waste time doing this, I just get into the writing. So that's how I do it.
Did you have any challenges maybe when it came to this book that you kind of had to figure out ways around?
It was a new format for me to think about it as a bit of a mystery or a whodunit. With the first 2, you kind of have these set piece thrillers where you've got threads that are moving separately and starting to connect as the story goes, and then eventually everything crashes into each other for the end. And so I kind of intuitively got that structure. Writing this as a mystery where I'm trying to give the reader little pieces of information or, drop a couple red herrings in. And I'm also trying to create an emotional resonance between all these characters, but also hide from the reader and my investigator, Proctor, who the mole actually is. That ended up being structurally that was a new thing for me to write a story like that. I think, again, if I were writing, cozy crime or, more kind of crime-focused stuff, I'm sure I would have had more practice with the structure, but that was new in this novel.
So your theme for this book is kind of a friendship, an overall friendship theme. What do you hope that your readers will take away from this book?
Well, I always hope that they forsake sleep and family to finish reading it. So that's always the first thing. I think I hope that people come away from the book with a deeper understanding of the CIA and the espionage business and what it's actually like to be part of it. I really do hope that's and that there's a humanization of it, that comes through. So that's one piece. I think that I would also hope that people come away from this maybe moved or somewhat reflective about the different types of friendships they have in their life, and that it would give them a better appreciation for the ones, because there is, I think, at the heart of this book, there's there's a lot of different types of friendship shown, but there is one which is between Proctor and the mole, and I won't say who it is, where you say this is a friendship that was deeply there was a deep betrayal at the heart of it that's actually been going on for years, and that's dark, And on the other side, she has another close friend in the novel where they have this sacrificial friendship. And they're not in love, like romantic, but they truly love each other. From the outside, kind of before we go through the story, those two friendships kind of look the same. But I hope it maybe in some ways gives people some reflection on the nature and value of really true self-sacrificial friendship and how it can be a really transformative thing in the world and in our relationships.
I'm going to really have to read this book now. I'm on it. Okay, so you said that all of these books are standalone books. You do not have to read one before the other, but they do all kind of correlate. You have the one character. So can you tell us? I mean, I know that this book just came out like 2 days ago, but everyone always wants to know what's next. Is there something you're already planning, already writing?
I've got the 4th book almost done. And
already?
I'm editing it already. Yes,
Jeez.
already.
You're hard at work.
I'm hard at work. I'm trying. The 4th book is it's a little bit more of a, I think, traditional kind of thriller in the sense of the first 2 novels. It's an Israel-Iran focused story. So of course I'm, not diving into anything controversial there by any stretch of the imagination. I shouldn't share a title at this point because I'm sure my editor will hate the working title.
Working title.
Working title, book 4. But it's a story that's set in kind of the middle of the shadow war between the Israelis and the Iranians, and it's a story about a group of Iranians who have found a way to kill a very specific group of Israelis in Israel, and that group of Israelis is trying to find out who's killing them in Iran and kill them.
Oh wow!
And it's a back and forth between those two groups.
You just gave me another question because I'm sitting here talking to you about your 3rd book that just came out, but you have already almost written the 4th book. Do you find it difficult to do these interviews, like having to remember like what happened in the 3rd one and you've already written the 4th one?
Yeah, I mean, I do kind of have to check my brain a little bit before the interviews. I mean, I haven't done anything so insane yet as to like just straight up answer questions about the wrong book in one of these. But yeah, it was very clean when my first book came out because there's one thing to talk to me about, and it's this, and it's very directly connected to what I did at the CIA. And now that I'm writing more of these, at any given point in time, the book could be. And what's kind of bizarre is the books come out overseas like later. So actually, the first book just came out in a couple European countries like 5 months ago. The second book is just coming out in others now.
So now you're going to do interviews about the first one and the second one and the third
one. Right. Yeah, exactly. So actually there were a couple days this summer where it's like I had conversations about the first book and the second book. I was getting ready to launch the third and having helping the publisher write the press release for the third and then writing the fourth. And so it was just kind of chaotic. But it's good. I mean, it's good chaos because it means the stories are getting out there. But it was easier when there was one. It was easier when there was one product. Let's put it that way.
What advice would you maybe give other writers who want to incorporate the CIA?
Read my books. Well, no. So honestly, here's what I would say is don't watch any spy stuff and think that you can just take the language or the characterizations of the CIA from that stuff. Don't do that. Try to find somebody who worked there and talk to them about it. That is, and I think what you'll find, again, if you just sort of spend a little bit of time on social media, if any of these aspiring writers do that, and they're like, okay, I've got the CIA incorporated here in some respect, there are lots of formers who are out there and who are generally willing to chat with writers about this stuff because they get to talk and tell stories, and it's usually a win-win. So find somebody that worked at the CIA and have a conversation with them and have 5 questions and ask them those questions. The other thing is you can be smart about finding memoirs and books written by formers about the CIA that have firsthand information about what it's actually like to work there. Now, of course, if you're writing spy stories or whatever, like, you're going to break the rules at some point, and you're going to want to write things into the story that aren't realistic, but you can give yourself a real leg up on pretty much everybody else writing. If you spend just a little bit of time doing that research, having those conversations, you can build enough of a foundation of authenticity that makes the kind of crazy stuff in the fiction work.
I am going to be quite honest. I am not a spy girl. I've never been into Mission Impossible, all that stuff. I'm just like that. I highly doubt is real in any way. And turns out
it's totally made up. Yeah.
So your books might actually be the only spy books that I ever read in my life.
Well, I will take that as a tremendous honor. And I think you'll find that, hopefully the reader, the sort of vibe that I hope to create is like, you'll get into it and you'll say, like, this feels real enough. And then after a little while, you won't even care.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for.
So last question, just writing in general. What's your biggest piece of advice? Just writing for just anyone out there.
I think the biggest thing for me is like writing to a word count every day and treating it like you're punching a clock, and even if writing's not your full-time job, well, you could still punch that clock from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m., or from, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. or whatever your time is. I think treating it like a habit is really, really critical, no matter how much writing you can do or how little. Just get a word count goal and make sure you're doing that every day. The second thing, I've seen a lot of benefit from actually copying prose and chapters that I really like longhand and trying to sort of embed the rhythms and style of really, really talented writers into my brain, if I can. I think that's a really, really useful skill. I think obviously reading extensively in the genre or space that you are trying to write in is critical, but then also building in some outside, I've been trying to read more romance novels lately. I don't normally read a lot of romance stuff. There's a lot of them I'm not enjoying. Some of them I am, but I'm getting a much better sense of how a different sort of writer deals with plot and character and deals with romantic love. I think that's really interesting for me as a writer. So, going really deep in the part of the conversation that you want to be in, but also bringing in other influences, I think is really, really key. And I think it's really hard to be a good writer if you're not reading a lot, reading all the time. It's very kind of not possible, in my opinion.
What are some of who are some of your favorite writers, or maybe some of your favorite books?
I'm kind of all over the place in this front. Couple recently, I'll give you the recency bias. I read a book called 5 Decembers by James Kestrel, which is kind of a international mystery crime book that won the Edgar a few years ago that was absolutely masterful. World War II story set in kind of around the Pacific. I have been reading, one that I reread for this book that I had not read in a couple of years was a book called Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy by John le Carré.
Yeah.
Which is this kind of masterful character study of, again, this group of people inside the British Secret Intelligence Service, and it's a mole hunt. And so, I had reread it as part of the kind of research for this and found it's just an extraordinary story. A book that made me cry recently, I'm not usually a crier in books, is a book called Gates of Fire by Stephen Pressfield, which is a story about Thermopylae, the Battle of Thermopylae. And it's an incredible story about, I guess it sounds kind of weird to say, but it's an incredible story about male friendship and bonding and war. And it was just masterful. So those have been some recent ones that have really kind of punched pretty hard, those three.
I really appreciate you being here with me today, giving me your time. I know that you probably have a million other things you should be doing, like writing a book.
This was wonderful. I really enjoyed the conversation. It's McCloskey Books is the tag. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks for having me on. I really had a good time.
Well, have a great day and good luck in writing.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this chapter of conversations with some of our world's dark storytellers. This story may be over for now.
The next chapter is always waiting to be written.
Until then,
Dreadfully yours, Raven Rollins.